Panel number 1, a demon fox? Hello everybody and welcome to the Nar U cast. I am your host, Mumkey Jones.
And I'm Mage, I guess.
And me and Mage right now, we decided, evidently there is an opening slot here on the PCP for a new podcast. I guess there is some other podcast on this channel that has moved to a different one, I don't know. But Mage and I saw this as the perfect opportunity to start our own manga anime book reviewing podcast. But, you know, instead of doing it chapter by chapter or something stupid like that, we decided it would be better to enrich our Naruto reading experience, to dissect this, to analyze this beautiful piece of art, panel by panel. So each week we're gonna review a new panel of the Naruto manga. How does that sound to you, Mage?
That's great, because when you review it like by chapter, you miss out on all the wonderful art and detail that goes into every panel. So we're gonna go into very detailed stuff.
Yeah, because when you're doing it by chapter, you're going to be more focused on, like, the plot and the characters, and you really do miss out, like, the showmanship that goes into each panel, you know? How big should this individual panel be? What will be happening? What is the art style we want to go for here? Where do we put the words? Are the words in Japanese? I don't know. There's so many decisions that go into every little intricate detail of manga that people don't appreciate when you review it on a grand scale, like an entire chapter.
Yeah, they just take it for granted. Like, have you ever tried making a manga? You know how hard it is to make panels? That's an actual
very hard
problem. Yes.
And we are blessed because the first panel of the Naruto manga is an entire page.
Yes.
It's a full page. So we're going to review the first panel and the first page at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, up at the top, we have the introduction. You know, it's chapter 1. And what's interesting is that before the 1, instead of like a number sign or something, they have this ominous-looking paw print. Do you see what I'm looking at here, Mage?
Yeah, I see it.
Now, we don't know, starting off, because we're only looking at the chapter number right now, we don't know if this is the paw of, like, a wolf, of a dog, of a cat. You know, we don't know what this is going to be, but I think, having read this first panel, I think this might be foreshadowing to what the first paragraph of the panel is going to tell us.
Very subtle of them.
And then we have a colon, and then it tells us the name of the chapter, which is Uzumaki Naruto.
With 2 exclamation points. Not 3,
it's very
not
exciting.
1, it's 2.
Now, now you're a bit of an artist, right, Mage?
Yeah.
Why do you think that the artist chose to do 2 exclamation points instead of 1 or 3?
See, because 1 would not be enough, and 3 just makes it, it's kind of a bit too much. So I'm guessing
it seems like they're trying too hard.
Yeah, so I think like to find that perfect unique balance, because you don't see people use 2 exclamation points. People always just kind of go between 1 or 3 or like infinity, but never 2.
And you know, that's a pretty good angle, because I think from the very beginning Naruto was trying to be original. So even the number of exclamation points, you know, the originality shines through even in something like the first chapter title. Very interesting. So now we move into, there are 4 sentences on this page, 1 in each corner, and the center image is... Should we talk about the art first before we dive into the exposition?
No. We should read the text first, because...
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so should I read out the first sentence?
Oh, yeah, I think we should. I think we should always read what's on the page, since these are short enough.
Yeah, okay. So, like any manga, we start reading from the right side rather than the left side.
Now, that always confused me as a kid, because they always teach you, with, English books, you read left to right. So I'm a kid, I'm sitting there holding this, what I assume is a comic book. I don't know what Japan is. I don't know what a manga is or an anime. As far as I know, everything is just a cartoon or a comic book. So when I start reading this shit as a kid, it starts off, on the left. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense. So it'd make more sense to start on the right. So it's like a big cultural gap, and that's another thing that I appreciate about this, is that it stays true to Japanese culture, to Japanese customs, and it teaches American kids, or English kids, what have you, about how cultures can have even something simple like reading can be completely backwards and different, and I really like that.
Yeah, I remember when in Lithuania manga became a thing, they had this sort of little warning that like, oh, you're supposed to read it that way, not that way. But I think they only did it on popular manga like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto. The other mangas that I bought, they didn't have that warning. But luckily for me, I already knew what manga was, so I knew how to read it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You were a cultured child.
Well, manga came in pretty late into Lithuania, so I was already a teen by that time. No longer a child.
Oh, that's so unfortunate. You didn't get to grow up with Naruto?
Kind of like I discovered Naruto in my early teens when I discovered the internet, and it was actually one of the first animes I've watched. So I kind of did grow
I think
up with
it's the ideal gateway anime because it opens you up to this wonderful world of Japanese cartoons.
I absolutely loved Naruto when I was younger.
Okay, so should we read this first sentence?
Okay. You want to start?
Okay, yeah, I can. It says, once appeared a nine-tailed demon fox. Now, this is interesting because and I know we don't want to dive into the art yet, but it looks like it's kind of an abstract depiction of what I think this fox would be like. And it has these weird spirals coming off. And if I count them, 1, 2,
Yeah, there's
3,
9.
4, 5. There's 9. Okay, so it's consistent with the words on the page. That's good.
Yep.
Its mighty tails could crumble mountains and cause tsunamis. Well, okay, so it's setting up this concept of a giant evil demon fox. Now, do you think that this is kind of ostracizing to a new viewer? If they pick up a Naruto book and they see like this orange ninja who looks like he's having crazy adventures, and then you open it up and the first panel is like talking about some weird mythology stuff with like a magic demon fox, do you think that was kind of a risky move on the part of the artist, or do you think it's a good way to introduce us to the world of Naruto?
The art probably is confusing because when I first saw the whole page, I couldn't make heads or tails of what it was. But after reading the words and looking into the picture, I was like, oh, I see now. I see what they're saying, and like. It's a 50-50, I think, on a lot of people. It depends on how interested they are. If they're just flipping through and they're probably just gonna see like a mess and they're just gonna skip it, not bother to look into it. But those who stop and smell the roses, so to speak, will get treated to the nice little imagery of the actual words. So I don't know.
Do you want to move on to the next sentence?
Okay, should I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
To fight the demon, the people assembled all the shinobi from the village.
Now, I don't know about you, and this might be an issue with just the translation, but I think the word assembled is spelled wrong on this page. Is it spelled wrong for you, too?
Yeah, now that you mention it, it might be spelled wrong.
They have it spelled ASSENMBLED. Now, do you think that in the original Japanese kanji that they spelled it wrong as well as some sort of symbolic reference to the people assembling, although later on in the show, and this will probably be a good, since we're doing this panel by panel, we'll probably get to this in about 80 years, but there's a great ninja war from all the different clans, and so this might be foreshadowing to how the people didn't actually assemble, and that's why they spelled it wrong on purpose, as sort of, a symbolic way of saying, these people might be assembling, but as we all know, that's not actually going to happen.
No, I think it might be just a spelling error on the translator's part.
I think both of our hypotheses are equally possible.
Well, yes, but at the same time, I'd like to believe that, it's kind of like you're you're giving too much depth to it, at least for how I see it, maybe, because by the time they get to that part where this little hint makes sense, I think people would have forgotten that misspelling.
That's a good point. All right, I'll move on to the third sentence. It says, one brave shinobi was able to seal up the demon, but because of that, he lost his life. Tragedy. On the very first page, we have somebody dying. It tells you that this is going to be a series of fights and death and sorrow and sadness and violence. And in the third sentence of the entire manga, we have a brave shinobi dying. What do you make of this?
Well, it is certainly tragic, and once we get to the fourth sentence, I might talk a little bit more, not about the tragedy, but about the whole thing. I would just like to say that the word shinobi, first-time comers would probably not know what it means, and
no.
I don't think do they ever explain it. Maybe
I think you just kind of have to figure out on your own that
just
shinobi
kind of
kind of means like warrior, ninja, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think like now it's popular to say, "Oh, Naruto's a ninja" and stuff like that. But in the manga, they use the word shinobi, which is, I'm guessing, that Japanese word for it, or something like it, or you know. But yeah, for newcomers, it might be confusing to be assaulted right on the first page with unknown
with all this
words.
weird terminology and vernacular that you might not be accustomed to. But again, it's introducing us to a different culture, and I think it's an important thing. That's the second time on this page that Japanese culture has been, thrust upon non-Japanese readers, but in a good way.
Yes.
And the final sentence in the bottom left corner says, that shinobi was called the fourth Hokage. Again, we're not only do we have the word shinobi again, but now we have something called a Hokage, which, as a reader, I don't have any idea what Hokage is supposed to be, let alone being the fourth.
Yeah, but I think they actually do explain later on what a Hokage is, or what a Kage is. But unlike shinobi, which I'm not sure if they do or not.
Right.
But yeah, there's two words right on the first page that the readers might not be familiar with.
Right. It's opening them up to this whole new world where even the words are different. It's
quite risky, though, a risky action for the translator, because a lot of people might drop things if they feel like they can't understand what's going on. And usually that's a result of using unknown words. It's what a lot of creative people suffer from when they try to explain the mechanics of their world and right off the bat, but because people don't know the setting or the story or the characters or anything, they have no one or nothing to relate it to. So it's just a big blurb. They can't really picture it in their heads and they don't understand what's going on. So yeah, at least it's only 2 words rather than 4 or 5 on the first page.
And speaking of setting up, the world of your fiction at the beginning, this this page consists of 4 sentences, but already we have so much lore, we have so much backstory, so much exposition just from these 4 not that long sentences. We know that there's a magical demon fox, so now we know we're thrust into a world where magic and demons exist, and that there are there are different villages full of shinobi. We don't know what a shinobi is necessarily, but we can assume if they're gathering to fight, there's some sort of warrior or fighter or something like that. We know that you can seal demons with magic spells, and that there is something called a Hokage, and evidently there have been 4 of them. And we can assume because the shinobi who sealed the demon became Hokage, that in some way being a Hokage means you're very powerful, or you're some sort of tragic hero, something like that. So I think it's astonishing how Miyamoto, when he wrote this, was able to have so much lore within 4 short sentences.
Another thing, the 4th sentence that I quite like, is that instead of giving the character a name like, Bob or whatever, they specifically said this person was called the 4th Hokage, which sounds like, a title, the 4th something, like the 4th president or something. So it means that this person's status is more important than this person's actual person. It's more important to the story, to the plot, to know what he is rather than who he is.
And it's probably a good thing that they do that for 2 reasons. One, you're right, it does establish that, a Hokage is a title that's more important than your name. But 2, and this might be spoilers for 800,000 panels in the future, but when we find out who the 4th Hokage actually was, that's a huge turning point for Naruto. So I think it's good that we keep this a secret all the way back from panel 1.
Yes.
Now, are you ready to talk a bit about the artwork now?
Yes, I have quite a few things to say.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so at the very bottom, under the fox thing that we already established has 9 tails and stuff like that, there's a circle, and within that circle we can see a ninja star that not a lot of people, or at least not first-comers, would be familiar with if they're not familiar with the Japanese culture and whatnot.
Right.
But within that star, you can see a figure standing on top of a frog that has a symbol on its belly. You see that?
Yeah. Do you read Japanese? Do you know what that symbol means?
Sadly, no. I used to be familiar with a few symbols, but this is not a symbol I'm familiar with, no.
That's too bad. Somebody in the comments will have to let us know.
Yes. And he is surrounded by little fire things, which usually denotes like magic because they're floating fire things like wisps or whatever. So I'm assuming it's, referencing how he sealed demon. And if you go back up to see right behind the demon fox, you can almost make out like a little sigil, the word maybe, like a kind of not a circle, how many corners? I can't really tell how many corners it is, but it's like it kind of looks
like an alchemy circle.
Yeah, it kind of almost looks like a seal, which makes sense because this person is sealing up the demon, and the whole picture is connected like that. And basically,
now it's a. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's basically just illustrating the four sentences we just read. That's why I wanted to read the sentences first rather than analyzing the image.
I think it's a good thing that we're analyzing this one panel at a time because there's so many little details to the art that, I never would have even thought of before unless I was doing a show like this. But your description was pretty apt of you have the big ninja star and then the guy on the frog is standing in front of it. But what I'm noticing now is a bit of Jesus imagery because the shinobi ninja star is sitting up in a way that resembles, the cross. It's like, up and then a cross,
Yeah, and it could also resemble, the death of the person.
Exactly, because the whole point of the cross is that Jesus is making the ultimate sacrifice for the good of the people around him. And this shinobi is standing in front of this ninja star that is in the shape of a cross. So it's like he is sacrificing his life to save the people around him, which is exactly what he's doing according to the text.
Exactly.
So that's crazy.
He died to save others.
That's just, it's phenomenal. I never would have observed something like that. So do we have anything else we should talk about on this panel, or should we save it for next time?
I think we're done here. I just wanted to point out that I quite like the sort of messy, inky look of this. It looks tattered and kind of old.
Like you're reading an old ninja scroll that is telling you stories of the past.
Yes, and it's very, very messy, very maybe almost rushed in a way, but at the same time you can still make out the important details. And also it's rather than written, it's illustrated, so anyone at any point, any time, from anywhere could try and understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of like when somebody messes up their hair on purpose to make it seem like they don't care about how their hair looks. This art is kind of wacky and crazy and sloppy on purpose to resemble something greater.
Maybe the chaos that the demon had brought upon the land.
That's brilliant. All right, well, everybody, thank you for joining us for the Nar U cast, where we review the Naruto manga one panel at a time. I'm looking forward to the next one. Mate, should we do this daily? Should we put these up once a day, once a week, once a month, once an hour? What do you think? How often should we put these up?
Let's keep it a surprise.
Okay. We'll keep it a surprise. We'll see you guys next time for panel 2 of chapter 1 of page 2 of Naruto. I've been Monkey Jones.
And this has been Mage.